County Lane Road, just the mention of it gives me anxiety. We've seen all the comments and frustrations from the public. So let's take a look at what was supposed to happen, what has actually happened, and why the heck this project isn't done yet. I'm going into the lion's den to break it all down for you. Stay tuned.
This is the Calimesa Insider Podcast, the original Pass Area City podcast, focusing on the ins and outs of your city government at work. And now here's the host of Calimesa Insider, City Manager Will Colbo.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the program. It's been about 4 weeks since I posted a show. For the second time in about 6 weeks, I got quite sick, so I couldn't record at my normal time. I actually had a temperature as high as 104 the day I was supposed to record, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. You may also notice that the background looks a little different today. That's because I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm here for a bowling tournament, which I will be doing tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday. I think I mentioned that I'm a competitive bowler on the very first episode of the podcast, but this would explain why I'm holding a bowling ball in the AI action figure that our stellar social media manager created. I'll give you an update on the next episode as to how that bowling tournament goes. Now, before we get to the main topic, let's take a look at our next city council meeting, which will take place this Monday, May 5th at 6 p.m. The agenda is pretty light for this meeting, as there's only one business item to discuss, a funding request from the Calimesa Cultural and Performing Arts Association. The consent calendar includes a resolution of opposition to two proposed rules from AQMD regarding gas appliances, as well as an agreement with the San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency to pave 4th Street between County Lane Road and their property directly south of 4th Street Park. The city has included all of 4th Street in its pavement management program for this year, but since the Pass agency is doing a pipeline later this summer, we have instead asked them to do that stretch of road. So the city's pavement management contractor took care of the rest of 4th Street. That's why you see only part of 4th Street was paved. Again, that's this Monday, May 5th at 6 p.m. You can attend live in person at the Norton Young Love Senior Center or watch live on YouTube by visiting calimesa.gov/YouTube. All right, so let's get to the main topic, which I know you've all been waiting for. The County Line Road project has been the bane of my existence since becoming city manager in November of 2022. We have taken quite a bit of criticism from the public on how long it's taken in the current state of County Line Road, and I can't blame anybody for that frustration. We do have a few people in particular that like to take shots at us every time there's something about County Line posted, and even sometimes on unrelated posts. I mean, that's how much people are frustrated. Now, I have previously discussed aspects of County Lane Road on episode 8, where I talked about the background of the project and why roundabouts were chosen for this project. I also addressed some particularly unfair accusations in regards to the oversight of the project in episode 30. Are there things that the city could have done better or different? Sure. However, I think what people don't realize is how complicated the project has been, or at least how it became so complicated because of how many players have become involved over time. As you're going to see and hear, there are many ways to define County Line Road project, and there are a lot more players involved than most realize, all of which have their own powers and interests. So, without further ado, let's dive in. I will do my best to describe things for you that are using audio only, but if you are able, I do recommend watching the YouTube version of the show, as it will be easier to follow. All right, so with that, let's switch over to the presentation, shall we? Now, when we talk about the County Line Road project, it's important to know which project we are talking about. So, for example, is it the LPP project, which installed the roundabouts? Or is it the Ukaipa ATP project that installed bike lanes and sidewalks between California and 3rd Street? Or is it, what about the Ukaipa MSRC project that installed bike lanes and improved sidewalks from just east of Calimesa Boulevard to just west of 5th Street? It could be the South Mesa Water Company pipeline project. Or on the other side of the freeway, it could be South Mesa Water Company project to install a water line for the Ukaipa warehouse. What about the YVWD sewer project that ran from the west end of County Line Road to Calimesa Boulevard? How about the more recent work at the intersection of Bryan and County Line Road that installed a connection to the State Water Project? It could be the related project that will rehab the old South Mesa water line that will carry the water from that new State Water Project connection. It might be the Calimesa Creek project, which will install a storm drain between 5th Street and Calimesa Boulevard. Or finally, it could be the new roundabout at Calimesa Boulevard and County Line Road. Now, that last one won't break ground for a while, but it has been on the books for about 10 years and is fully funded. So for this conversation, the three that we'll focus on for the LPP project, the LPP project, the South Mesa Water Company pipeline project, and the State Water Project connection. The Calimesa Creek and San Gregorio Pass Water Agency projects still need to be done before final pavement can be done, as you will learn as we go through this timeline. Now, here are some of the various agencies that have some hand in the various projects. The City of Calimesa is the lead on the LPP, Calimesa Creek and County Line Road and Calimesa Boulevard intersection projects. The City of Ukaipa was the lead for the ATP and MSRC projects, as well as a funding partner on the LPP and Calimesa Boulevard intersection projects. The Riverside County Flood Control District is providing the funding for the Calimesa Creek project, so they have to sign off on all aspects of the project, which is contributing to delays in getting that project started. The San Gregorio Pass Water Agency is responsible for the rehab, which will connect the State Water Project to both the new basin created by the Calimesa Creek project and a new basin that the Pass Agency will build on 4th Street just south of the park. The San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District built the connection to the State Water Project at County Line Road and Bryant Street intersection. The Ukaipa Valley Water District was responsible for the sewer line work that mostly occurred on the west side of Interstate 10. The State Water Resources Control Board provided the funding for the new South Mesa water line and contributed to the delays in getting that started. Caltrans was responsible for the state funding for the ATP, MSRC, and LPP projects. All of these projects required a significant local match, which came from both Calimesa and Ukaipa. And finally, the California Department of Water Resources is responsible for the State Water Project, so they had to provide permitting for not only the connection to the line, but also for our road projects, even though the road was there first. So catch your breath on that. Now, I hear a lot of people that say we need to make these other agencies do various things, or we need to hold them accountable. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Cities do not have nearly the power that they think we have. South Mesa Water Company has prior rights in our streets, so they basically can do their repairs how they want. They don't like the patchwork. They did. Too bad. We don't like it either. But the courts have said that they can enter our streets and do what they want to, essentially. This is why it's so critical to make sure any work that they need to do is done first before we put in a nice new road, because it will shorten the life of the road the more it is torn up. And that couldn't be more true than between Park and Calimesa Boulevard on County Line Road. There's so much patchwork that's been done there, and that's why that road is in such bad shape. The bottom line is when you have this many projects happening at once and 10 different entities involved, all with their own interests, a lot can go wrong. And unfortunately, a lot has. So this project dates back all the way to 2018, now over 7 years ago. It started with the ATP and MSRC grants that Ukaipa received. The cities entered into a fair share agreement for those two grants. 2 months later, Calimesa was awarded a Local Partnership Program grant, or LPP. This covers the roundabouts, and it was a key component of the city receiving the grant due to roundabouts' abilities to improve the capacity of intersections without the need for traffic signals and significant road widening. Traffic signals are expensive to install and must be powered and maintained, so roundabouts are also less expensive in the long run. The LPP grant only covers construction costs. The cities were responsible for right-of-way acquisitions, design, and a local share of construction. The first construction component of these projects was the MSRC portion, which added sidewalks between 3rd Street and California. The bike lanes will be striped, when the final paving is done, and more on that later. After that, it took a while for the state to actually fund the LPP grant, almost 3 years after it was first awarded. Now, given the March 2021 date, the construction contract had to be awarded by March 2022. Then we had 3 years to complete the construction once awarded. So originally, the construction contract was to be awarded in August of 2021. However, 2 bids were received, which significantly exceeded the budget. Given the time frame, which was still during COVID-related shortages, this was not too surprising. Now, as a result, the city rescoped the project to value engineer it. But if we follow the original timeline, the construction would have started in October of 2021. Then 3rd Street was supposed to be installed first and to be completed by the end of December of 2021, followed by the Bryant Street roundabout in March of 2022. Then the California Street roundabout in April of 2022. Then the 2nd Street roundabout in June of 2022. And finally, the project would have ended in October of 2022 with the completion of the 5th Street roundabout. Now, as I stated, though, the city revised the scope and lowered the lowest responsible bid of the 5 received was roadway engineering at $8.2 million. This contract was awarded in February of 2022, and construction was started in April of 2022. So at that point, the 3rd Street roundabout would have then been completed in June of 2022. Then the Bryant Street roundabout in September of 2022. The California Street roundabout was to be completed in October of 2022. Then the 2nd Street roundabout in December of 22. And finally, the big 5th Street roundabout was to be completed in April 2023. So based on that timeline, we should have been done 2 years ago. So what the heck happened? As it turns out, quite a lot, most of which was out of our control. Now remember, this turned out to be almost a dozen projects, some of which were not known at the time this project was conceived. So to understand, the context, we have to look at the timeline of the South Mesa Water Company pipeline project. Now, back in March of 2022, South Mesa applied for a grant to replace their pipeline in County Line Road from Interstate 10 to just west of Douglas. This timeline is important because the application went in right before we went to award our contract, and we were not initially aware of the grant application. And in June of 2022, the South Mesa Water Company was awarded the grant. This does not mean that is when they got the money, which, just like the LPP delay, became a big factor in the timing of all of these projects. So soon after the award, the city and South Mesa entered into an agreement to coordinate timing and other factors between the two projects. Again, this assumed that funding would come through in short order for South Mesa. In reality, it took South Mesa almost 2 years to get the funding agreement approved by the state. This threw all of our timelines off significantly. Both the city and South Mesa expected the funding to come through in October of 2022, but it wasn't until May of 24 that they had access to the funds. Now, these delays contributed to a delay in South Mesa's ability to line up their contractor. The city was originally going to have roadway demobilized when South Mesa's contractor began work. That was supposed to be in November 2022. However, construction did not begin until August of 2024. Now, work was supposed to be done by May of 2023, but it did not actually finish until the end of March of this year. So if you go back to our LPP timeline, after we completed the California Street roundabout, work was supposed to stop for the South Mesa work. So if South Mesa work was finished in May of 23, we'd have gone in and done the 2nd Street roundabout by the end of June of 2023. Then the 5th Street roundabout would have been done in October 2023, and that would have then completed the project, save for some additional paving that might have taken a month or two. So that means essentially by the end of 2023, the project would have been completely finished. Still, that did not happen. We saw the delays with South Mesa, which had impacts on our project, but there were also other problems as well. So let's take a look at the actual timeline of the project. So going back to the award of the contract was indeed awarded in February of 2022. Construction began in April of 2022 as expected with storm drain and curb, gutter, and sidewalk work. Now, this is where things started to take a little bit of a turn. As you recall, we were originally supposed to start with the 3rd Street roundabout. However, we had to skip the 3rd Street roundabout due to right-of-way issues with the 7-Eleven at the southwest corner of the intersection. Now, 7-Eleven had an application to redo their store, which would have included adding gas pumps. As part of the approval of the project, 7-Eleven would dedicate the land needed for the roundabout. Now, normally, 7-Eleven would have had to pay for improvements on their frontage, but the project would take care of that. This is why the deal to have 7-Eleven dedicate the right-of-way would have made sense. However, at the last minute, 7-Eleven pulled their application and stopped the project. The city still needed the right-of-way, though, but 7-Eleven went silent when the city tried to contact them. So we had to keep working to get that right-of-way while the rest of the project continued. Hence, we skipped over to Bryant. So work began in June 2022 on the Bryant Street roundabout and was completed in October of 2022. It did get us behind a bit, but nothing that wasn't manageable. We moved on to the California Street roundabout and completed that by December of 2022. And that was followed by the 2nd Street roundabout done in March of 2023. Now we move to 5th Street. This is one that people really start to see the issues with this project. Work began in March of 2023, right on the heels of the 2nd Street roundabout. Now, this was the biggest of the roundabouts, so it was expected to take a little bit longer, and work on the roundabout was done in about July of 2023, except for one little problem. The utility poles that had not been relocated. We originally made aware that they would not be removed before the completion of the roundabout was halfway through, well after the previous intersection had been torn up. Had we known beforehand, we would have delayed the work at 5th Street. Now, the coordination on the relocation was the responsibility of Yucaipa, since that intersection is wholly in Yucaipa. But it is our understanding that Yucaipa requested the relocation sometime in 2021, while the project was still in its planning stages. However, I cannot confirm that date. That's what we were told. We were told that the relocation might happen in September, so we just left the completed intersection closed until that could happen. However, as we got closer to September, SEE made it clear it would not happen before the end of the year. As a result, the cities worked together to partially open the intersection so that some traffic could get through. However, we had to keep southbound 5th Street coming from Yucaipa and 5th Street northbound going into Yucaipa closed due to the location of poles. Finally, in May of 2024, the poles had been relocated and additional work to fully open the intersection was completed. Interestingly, this is around the same time that South Mesa got their funding from the state for their water line. So rather than start the 3rd Street roundabout, not knowing exactly when South Mesa's contractor would come through, we held off beginning the work at 3rd Street. By this time, we had acquired enough right-of-way to complete the road portion of the roundabout. After South Mesa's contractor passed through the 3rd Street, we began working on that roundabout in September 2024, and it was complete in December of 2024. So what's left? We know that there are parts of County Line Road that are in very poor shape. Why is it that still has not been fixed? Well, we were made aware of South Mesa's intentions before we started work, so that at the beginning we knew that we could not do any final paving until that work was done. Sorry about that. Had it not been for that, we would have done the final paving as the roundabouts were being completed. The project would have been done if no other utility work was needed. but it would be a waste of time and money to do the final paving if we know other projects are going to be tearing up the road. Again, we cannot tell them that they are not allowed to replace their infrastructure. They also have no obligation to completely repave the road if they tear it up, even though we would like them to. So if we know they are going to go in and do the work in the street, it is most prudent to wait until the work is done before we do the final paving work. Now, one of the projects that still needs to be done is the Calimesa Creek project. And this work is again being done in conjunction with the Riverside County Flood Control District, who is providing almost all the funding for the project. The city is contributing some funds from our storm drain development impact fee funds. Phase 1 includes installing a new storm drain in County Line Road from just west of 5th Street, taking in water from the creek to the south down to Calimesa Boulevard. The actual location of the storm line is on the Yucaipa side of County Line Road, and we are working as quickly as we can to get Riverside County Flood to sign off on the project, clearing the way for construction. It's been a frustrating process because the Flood Control District is woefully understaffed, so it has been taken longer than anticipated. We are planning to get the construction started in September or October timeframe, and it'll take about 4 months to complete construction. Phase 2, which will not have any road impacts, will include improvements in the creek itself. It will also add a large stormwater retention basin in the lot on County Line Road just west of 3rd Street. San Gregorio Pass Water Agency also plans to use the basin for groundwater recharge. Now, speaking of San Gregorio Pass Water Agency, they have a project coming up soon also. They are taking over the line that was abandoned when South Mesa built their new pipeline. And since it's an old pipeline, they need to do some rehab to that line. So that would require some more tearing up of County Line Road, which again means that we have to put off final paving. This work will happen between Bryant and 4th Street. At that point, they will build a new pipeline in 4th Street from County Line Road to just south of 4th Street Park, as we talked about earlier with that agenda item. They are going to build a groundwater recharge basin just south of the park, which will be fed by that pipeline. This is also why the city will not be paving all of 4th Street. That portion will be fully paved when the pass agency does their work, the water line work, as I mentioned earlier. Construction of the rehab and new pipeline will begin in June, with the completion in the August-September timeframe. Once both Calimesa Creek and rehab lines are done, we will be able to finally do the final paving for the entire project. Now, understanding that there's still some time before that happens, the city of Yucaipa is looking at doing some pavement repairs in what is probably the worst part of County Line, which is between Calimesa Boulevard and 5th Street. So, there it is. That's what's happening. So again, I know this has been a frustrating project. This is not meant to make excuses, but rather to explain what has happened. You'll come to your own conclusions as to how we got here and based on what has happened. And it's easy to Monday morning quarterback. We don't like that this has taken as long as it has. Our goal is always to serve our public the best we can. But sometimes things just don't go the way we want them to. I just ask for your grace and patience as we try to get this thing done once and for all. All right. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, another reminder to come in and watch our next city council meeting on Monday, May 5th at 6 p.m. At the Norton Young Love Senior Center. You can watch live or on demand at calimesa.gov/YouTube. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the Calimesa Insider Podcast on your favorite podcast app and YouTube. And also catch us on social media on Instagram and TikTok. Until next time, thanks again for joining me and this week, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care.